Hi there! Today is your first official screencast as fourth graders. What we're going to be doing is starting our timeline. At this point, you should have already submitted your template on Classroom, and I should have already given you approval on the events that you selected. So let's go ahead and get started here. You need a pencil. You also need your white paper in front of you, and that's all you need for right now. Okay? The first thing to really consider about your timeline is that every timeline has a title. Okay, that's really important. Every timeline's going to have one. So think of what you want your title to be. Think about what your timeline is about. So in this case, your timeline is about you. So what I would do for my title is my personal timeline. Okay. So that's going to be mine for right now. What I would suggest you could do is maybe put your name rather than mine. So you could say Miss Renfro's personal timeline, because we will display these and we want to be able to easily see your timeline from your neighbors or your partners. Okay? So I'm going to write that on here as well on my piece of paper at the very top in pencil, because if we make mistakes, we can go back and erase. It's no problem at all. So my personal timeline. Now, the next thing I need to consider is my intervals. Remember, intervals are going to be the time frame that we have from the very beginning to the end, and the duration of our years. So I know that I'm going to start mine with my birth date, and I'm going to go ahead and end it in 2016. So for the sake of you guys, because I know you're born a little bit after I was, I'm going to start at 2006 for you. Okay? Now, if you were born in 2007, you would start in 2007. If you were born in 2005, you'd go ahead and start in 2005. So just keep that in mind. Wherever you're going to start, that's going to be your birth date year. I'm just doing this for sake of an example here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my first line down. And I'm going to go ahead and label this year as 2005. Now I'm doing that because I'm going to say that my birth year is 2006, and I want it to be on my actual timeline here. I don't want to put it off at my very starting spoke. Okay, so I would go 1 year before you're born. And then your last year is going to be 2016. Okay, because that's the year we're in currently. So you should have this step done at this point. Remember, you want to go 1 year before to go ahead and start it. So if you're born in 2006, start in 2005. If you're born in 2007, start in 2006. Okay, that way we don't start necessarily right on timeline. All right, at this point, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to get out a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you may borrow mine at the very back of the classroom where you can find pencils. Okay, so pause now if you need to, and go ahead and grab one. All right, at this point, we should definitely have our rulers in front of us. What we need to start thinking about now is some math. We need to figure out how many years is between our birth date, or the year before our birth date, and our end date. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I can see pretty clearly here that I have about 11 years. Okay, the thing about timelines is your intervals always need to be evenly spaced, or else it's not accurate. So I need to figure out a way to evenly space my intervals for each of my years. Now, it makes sense for me to just do it year by year. Other times, though, in other timelines, you can sometimes skip years. Maybe you'll do it in increments of 5 or increments of 10. In this case, we're going to stick with 1 because that's the only one that's going to really make sense for 11 years. Okay? So next, I'm going to go ahead and put my ruler up. I'm going to see here that if I put my ruler kind of lined up with my starting date, I have about 12 inches here. And if I continue going, I'm going to end up with about 21 inches. So I want to evenly space them out, so I'm going to measure here. And I think I'm probably going to do it for every Let's do every 2 inches. And this is why you need the pencil, because if it doesn't quite work out, you can erase and go back and try to figure out a better way to do it. But I'm going to start with 2 inches. You don't have to make your tick lines terribly huge, but for right now, it's just going to really kind of help us see where we're starting from. A little short for Mary. Alright, so let me see what I end up with here. It's trial and error. So this would be 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Alright, so that worked out pretty well for me. I still have some that I think I'd like to space a little bit more, like this one on the end. I may have to just move down just a tidbit more. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and label my dates where my little tick marks are now, okay? So if this is 2005 I start with, my next one is going to be 2006, and then 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, and then 2015. Okay. So as you can see here, I have them evenly spaced. I did 2 inches. That just worked well for me. You may have to kind of play around with it a little bit more, trial and error. Now, if you are struggling with trying to get your intervals together, I would like for you to quietly raise your hand, and I'll come around to help you, and we can kind of adjust and work together on this one, okay? Next, I need to go ahead and take a look at my 5 events that I've selected. So if I'm looking at it this way, my first event is going to fall in 2009. So what I'm going to do is, with my pencil once more, I'm going to go ahead and extend my spoke. And I'm actually going to do a little box. And I like it because I think it's a little bit neater and organized, and I can see things very clearly this way. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little box. And I'm going to go ahead and write in there that I graduated high school in 2009. So I would write I graduated high school. There's one event. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of my other events. I'm going to go ahead and say that in 2010, I went ahead and started college at Ohio University. I started college at Ohio University. Okay, so now I have that one done. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what I have going on next. In 2012, I went ahead and did my student teaching at Nord, so I'm going to add that to my timeline. And student teaching at Nord. Okay, so now I need at least 2 more events, at least. If you have more, that's awesome. We can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead, and my next date's going to be in 2013 when I began my teaching career in Chardon, Ohio. I'm going to make this box go a little higher than the rest of mine. Give it a little bit of personality here. And then my final one is going to be in 2016. coolest kids ever at Harris Elementary. All right, so there you have it. This is my timeline. If I wanted to go ahead and add more, I could even say that way back in 2006, I got my driver's license, believe it or not. I think I'm going to add it just so it balances my timeline out a little bit, so I have events spanning the whole timeline. Remember, we really want to make sure that we have one event for each year. We really don't want to add multiple events within the same year just for the sake of making our timeline look full, right? We want that. So by the end, it should look a little something like this. If you are having a hard time putting your events on the timeline or finding your intervals, please come see me. Remember, one of the biggest and most important things about timelines is that it's all about chronological order. So it's really critical that you're putting your dates in order and you're putting your events in order as well based on these dates. Ours is going to be spanning basically a decade, 11 years about. But you know what, yours may be a little bit shorter, and that's perfectly fine. If it's starting in 2007 or starting in 2008, that's okay. We'll be able to work with that too, so no worries there. Once you have gotten to this point where you've completed your timeline, you've put your events on, your intervals are pretty evenly matched up, what I would like for you to do is put your pencil down. I would like for you to go ahead and get a marker. You could use a permanent marker on my table if you'd like. If you need to borrow a marker, you can come up and ask me, or you can borrow my markers at the very back of the room. That's okay too. I would prefer that you use black for this. So don't use red, don't use blue, don't use green. We want to do black, a very kind of natural look. Once you've done that and you have your black marker, I'll take mine. I want you to just outline our timeline where we drew in pencil, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go through and do it like that. Now, once you have that done, I would prefer that you don't necessarily go over your writing in marker because it's going to look a little messy because we've probably written kind of small. So that's okay. You can leave it as is. But if you want to color it or decorate it, that's okay by me. So if you want to go ahead and get maybe a color for your boxes. And maybe I'll do some like polka dots around it. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and do something like that and maybe color those ones in, that's perfectly fine by me. The big thing is I want to be able to read your events. If I can't read your events, then that's a big problem. So maybe on this one, I'm just going to do tick marks. So you can go ahead and color it and decorate it as you would like. If you want to write your title a little bit bigger and kind of like make that stand out or pop out, that's okay too. Just make sure that it's big enough and it's not going to look too sloppy. The big thing here is really making sure we can read your penmanship and making sure it looks nice and neat for us to display. Okay? If you have questions, like I said before, raise your hand. I'll be coming around to help you. All right, thank you.